Hi, this is Dr. Andrea Goeglein, and again, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with a millennial who will help inform us all as to how to live life better. I mean, that's the whole thing. So joining me today is CJ Neff. And CJ, if I botched your name, please say it correctly so everyone knows.
You got it.
I did. Oh, yay. You know, that's an unusual thing for me. And CJ, tell everyone what it is you do today.
Yes, I am a wealth advisor with Hightower, Las Vegas. We are one of the largest independent financial advisory firms here in Las Vegas. And what that means is that I help clients develop financial plans and manage their investments over the long term.
Okay, now the cool part about this, and really the reason for this conversation today, is because CJ and I met, and this was not his profession. When we met years ago, that wasn't his profession. So give us a little bit of the backstory. When you and I met, you were a computer programmer?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So when I graduated with both a math and a French degree. So the identity crisis runs.
Math is French to me. So go ahead.
So it was important to me. It's been important for a very long time to activate both sides of my mind. So when I graduated college, I actually went to work for Lucasfilm, developing software to make visual effects for movies. So it hit on both the art and the science side of my brain. And so, yeah, I ended up falling in love with writing software, wrote software for web applications, iPhone applications for years, and then ultimately was managing other software engineers, building products. And so, but always with wanting both sides of my mind to be active.
So if I was to talk in my language about strengths, and do you, by any chance, have you taken your VIA strengths?
I have not.
Okay, so I will make sure that you do get to do that, and everyone in my audience knows that as far as I'm concerned, that's a cornerstone. But just hearing, you are a person who has definitely worked through disciplines, like you learn systems, and then in turn, you've applied the systems. And now take us to a point where you've spent, how long did you spend in the Silicon Valley doing incredible things with film and how long was that?
Well, I remember the first software that I wrote was back in 1999. I interned at my dad's company and built some interactive charts on a website that they had.
Okay.
So I did that for almost 20 years in total. I went to college in between there, but for quite a while, 15 years professionally, I did that. Cool.
And then, so tell us what happened. What was that restlessness? What was going on inside of you? Because clearly it was a skill. It was something you liked. You went to school for it. You weren't being forced. I assume you weren't being forced to do this.
Yeah, I did love it. I did love it. There's a wonderfully tactile feedback loop when you write software of a control and agency, that you're building something and you affect how it looks, how it operates. Right. And I really loved that. And I think, Facebook was really was birthed while I was in college. And I watched that model of scale, the promise of technology is that you can build it once and it works for 1 million people just as easily as it works for 1 billion people or wow, all of humanity. And so that's how I really fell in love with technology. But ultimately, that was, I think its downfall in terms of my passion for it was that it's a bit impersonal, right? You lose out on that human touch. And part of what I love, one of the most important things that I love about what I do now is sitting one-on-one across the table with my clients, looking them in the eyes, feeling the emotions that are on their heart, understanding their passions, their meaning, their purpose, the why behind the numbers. Those intimate moments with clients are the reason why I left technology, because
it's a little hard to get intimate with coding.
Exactly right. Yes.
So you started to miss some degree of connection. What was the awakening? What was and why this field?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think that really the answer is that I had my own personal financial awakening. So
Mhm.
I I did many financial things wrong before I really took the time to read the books, do the research, get educated on how to make personal finances work for me. Right.
Mhm.
I made great money as a software engineer in San Francisco during my 20s, and then moved to Las Vegas in my early 30s and realized, gosh, I had made this much money, but I ended up spending this much, a little bit more, right? So I walked
Mhm.
away having had a ton of income come through my hands, but actually walking away from San Francisco owing people money in debt, right?
That's such an incredible uh, observation, because I want you to know I've done it all ways. I was trained by a mom of the Depression. At 66 years old, my mom, was born in the 20s. So I was a child of the envelope system. I was so hyper focused on money and making sure you never had debt. Then I got into a bigger life with bigger responsibilities and getting into businesses, and I commingled the difference
Mm,
between debt that's necessary to grow businesses and how debt isn't the best thing for individual growth of
yes.
wealth. And I had to go through that spectrum for
Yeah.
sure.
I think what's interesting, Andrea, is I think some of the lessons are hard to learn without experiencing them for yourself, right?
Yeah.
I don't know many people that have accumulated a significant amount of wealth without having incurred a few bumps, scrapes, bruises, and scars along the way.
Yep.
You
And
know?
I had the pleasure of having a conversation with someone they had a phenomenal career, but now went from government industry to industry, and the compensation level is
Mm,
twice as much. And they caught themselves early adding things to their life. Like,
yes.
oh, now that I'm here, I'll do this. And now that I'm here, I'll hire this person. I'll stop doing this and I'll do this. And luckily they caught themselves early in that conversation, like, wait a minute, oh, why do I need this stuff? Like, I thought I
Oh,
wanted it, but I'm
yes.
working hard for all this money. I don't want to just keep shelling it out.
Yes. I think one of the most important and one of the most challenging parts of personal finance, Andrea, I think is balance, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it would be far simpler for me to advise all my clients to save all their money. First of all, it's not going to work, right? We've all got
Exactly.
a
No fun.
baseline. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've all got a baseline of bills that we have to pay, food,
Yep.
electricity, those sorts of things. But even be so, you know, then the opposite extreme is obvious, right? Spending all that you're making or overspending what you're making. And so finding that right balance between the joys of today and that long-term fulfillment and meaning and actualization of what you want for your life,
Right.
that's really where that's the hard part of my job, but also where the joy of my job. If I can help a client do that,
Mhm.
honestly, what's more valuable than that, right?
Yes.
Helping a client actualize their vision for their life.
And I will tell you that my phone was supposed to be on silent, um, that I have had many, many clients who had built businesses and their businesses were in financial trouble. But when I went to them and then asked the question, let's start with what your personal nut is every month. Like, let's do that. They would be
Mm,
clueless as to what it was costing to run their personal lives. So you and I share, there is a psychology,
mm, yes.
absolute psychology around our relationship with money. And there's lots of books written on it, I know on my end. And I have a deep appreciation for that. We have made this currency into something it's really not. It
Mm.
represents a lot to us.
Yeah, and I would tie that thought back to something that I said earlier, and something that's has always existed inside of me, the math and the French degree, right? The math was never going anywhere. I truly have a deep love of math, and that is very much so still a part of my everyday life and work, right? The French, I think, French is such a passionate culture and language. And I think
Mhm.
that I've kept that alive in my new role as a wealth advisor, in that it's important for me to zoom out with clients from not just looking at the numbers, but looking at the why, the passion, the meaning, the fulfillment, those sorts of things. And so that for me is the activation of both sides of my own brain. And I hope that it activates both sides of my clients' brains as well, right? They have the confidence both on the science and math and number side, and they know that that kind of numerical mathematical plan is leading them to those higher order fulfillment, achievement, meaning sorts of goals.
Great. And one of the things that as you were speaking, it dawned on me, like, I know that my field, when I uh, came into the field of positive psychology after getting my doctorate, it definitely changed my life, the work itself. And then research came out that said, although I am absolutely not a therapist and say that all the time, for clinical people in the field, when they were started applying positive psychology as their practices, as I did, their personal lives are better because we learn. How has your life become better because of your learning and then application for others? The finance, like, what shifted for you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it makes me just emotional to even think about some of the experiences that I've had, Andrea. I think a typical client life cycle for me looks like, I meet a prospect or I meet a new client, and it starts out on the formal side, the
Mhm.
numbers, the documents, the statements,
Yep.
those sorts of things. And it takes a little while to build the trust with a new client to talk about some of those higher order motivations.
Right.
But I can see when that change happens with a new client, Andrea.
Mhm.
And it's when I feel comfortable asking them, what pieces of advice have been important in your life? How have you managed this with your spouse? You've been married 40 years or 30 years or whatever it is. How have you and your spouse resolved this continual point of contention? Have you? Haven't you? What are some things that you've tried? And I love being able to both pour that back into my own life and my own marriage, and share it with other clients.
Mhm.
That it's not financial in nature, but
Right.
it's so incredibly valuable, Andrea.
And I'll give you a perfect example. So between my husband and I, he was super successful financially and otherwise. And yet, when things got tough in our businesses, he stopped communicating because he didn't want to have to disclose. So he started saying to me that the numbers were too complex, because a lot of the deal structures would come like, this would have to happen for that to happen. And I had my own things that I was doing. And then I caught on that every time he was saying that, no, it's a very complex structure, you're not going to understand, I had to build the listening skill to say, trust me, I can understand. But
Yes.
it was a way of avoidance. And in relationships, that's a very important thing to be able to know. How do we each avoid? And with money, money is the number one thing that business partnerships, I've written articles on this, business partnerships, marriage partnerships, money is the thing that either brings you together or tears you apart.
Yes. And I think part of it, Andrea, is that it's tied in with what you want to do in life, and important
Correct.
decisions about what is important for us to spend money on versus what's not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that
Yeah.
that's,
So, I don't want to keep you forever, but I want to make sure that your peers get a real sense of what it means to have a career shift. If you were to advise your peers on not just money, but career shifts and planning and that kind of thing, what type of advice would you be giving?
yeah, I think an intimate thing for me to reveal would be that I was worried about how much longer I could continue working in technology, because that passionate spark had dimmed inside of me. I still think that there's many, many more magical technological things to be invented and brought to market. And,
Right.
my friends that work in that industry, I think that they will have wonderful careers ahead of them. But
Yep.
for me, that personal spark had dimmed. And so there's a relationship here between the passion, meaning, and fulfillment and the numbers, right? I became concerned about, could I do this another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and make it all the way to retirement, or was I going to burn out? And
Right.
so for me, part of it, the origination for me was around passion. People can read that type of energy on others. Do you love what you do? Most people can see, even just meeting someone else for 10, 20 seconds, whatever it is, you can tell whether someone loves their job. I love what I do. The intimate relationships that I have with my clients and the advice that we're able to share is just a wonderful experience to have every single day. So that passion was really what originated my desire to have a career shift. But I think part of it, and maybe I was kind of backfilling this reason here, but I feel much better about being able to do this job for 10, 20, 30 more years, right? Because it doesn't feel like work. And I think that's really been one of the markers of millennials is intense passion, this desire to have identity fulfilled in the form of work, life, relationships. They're all kind of connected. And so for me, it's felt like a wonderful homecoming to have both my work and my personal passions come together more closely in this new career.
You and I have had a conversation, and one of the things that you mentioned was transcending. Your work is about transcending the numbers, both your personal work and the work that you do with others. Yes. And I will tell you that in these conversations, in everything that I'm building going forward in my own career, transcending the number of age as either, something that means you can't go ahead or you can go ahead, all the meanings that we put around, but transcending the numbers is such a core at every level of our being. So I want to close with you making sure everyone knows where to contact you, because I know they're going to want to.
Of course. Well, anyone watching, please feel free to send me an email directly at cj@hightowerlasvegas.com. And our website address is hightowerlasvegas.com.
Perfect. And I'll make sure that that's also in the description, because one of the things that I appreciate, everyone needs their peers. You've had all of these experiences that somewhat millennials can come in and they can want to, admire what you've done in the path you've taken and want to try and do the same thing for themselves or build from there. There's so many ways that each of us brings experiences, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows when and how to get in touch with you. So absolutely. CJ, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to have you with me and my pleasure to have you in my life.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on, Andrea.
All right. Thank you so much. And don't forget, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you can get more of these incredible conversations. Thank you.